The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position.
Representatives of Denmark and Greenland visited Washington, D.C. this week for a high-stakes meeting at the White House. This as U.S. President Donald Trump continues to claim he, quote, needs Greenland for security reasons. And now he's threatening to tariff countries who oppose a U.S. takeover of the autonomous territory. The rhetoric has drawn widespread concern from European allies, some of whom are now sending troops to Greenland at the request of Denmark. Joining me is the UK High Commissioner to Canada, Rob Tinlune. Next to him, that's France's ambassador to Canada, Michel, Miraillet. And next to him, that's Germany's ambassador to Canada, Tjorven, Bellmann. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here all together. Thank you for making the time. Ambassador Bellmann, I'm going to start with you. Donald Trump this week stated that anything short of Greenland being in American or U.S. hands is, quote, unacceptable. What does that say to you?
I think all of our governments have been very clear on defending territorial integrity and the right to self-determination. So we've said very clearly that, you know, it's only for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark to decide on matters for regarding Greenland, the Kingdom of Denmark. At the same time, it is clear that there are concerns in DC regarding Arctic security, something we take very seriously as well. So for us, what it means that we have to work now towards finding answers to that, to finding a solution. This is why the German foreign minister was in DC at the beginning of this week. This is why we've put proposals on the table in NATO to see whether the alliance can have more of a presence. It's why we have deployed our soldiers to Greenland as part of the exercise Arctic Endurance. And we want to be constructive and bring this to a solution that respects territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Ambassador Miraillet, is it your impression that there is a solution that could be qualified as constructive to be had, where where the concerns of Trump in the Arctic are?
Well, I would say that if I stick to what we heard about, I mean, the meetings between the Danish Minister of Foreign Affairs and Mr. Vance and the Secretary of State, I think that we need to give time to time. I mean, Greenland is at the cornerstone of two issues, fundamental issues for NATO and for the European Union. First of all is the security in the North Atlantic, and on the other hand, the respect of the sovereignty of countries, member of the alliance, but also member of the European Union. So I think that, we need to calm down this whole issue. I mean, in a sense, it's a family affairs, and there's nothing worse than family affairs. I mean, the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre was used to say, "Family, I hate you." But I think that it's not the first crisis we see within NATO. I mean, we have encountered that in 2003. I think that there's unanimity between leaders to remind, the United States that, as a democratic country, they need to stick to the independence and compromise with the, we are uncompromising with the national sovereignty of our partners.
Do you think, High Commissioner, that the temperature can be turned down? And I think under most circumstances, it would be understandable that it could be, given the posture of NATO allies in relation to the kinds of things President Trump is talking about. But every time a solution or even the proposition of turning the temperature down is put to the president or one of his delegates, they appear to be even more emphatic in their rhetoric about their desire to acquire Greenland.
So look, we're doing fundamentally two things. The Dane and the Greenland foreign ministers were clearly in the White House this week talking to their American counterparts and Vice President Vance. Those conversations are continuing. You saw them come out and say there's a process to continue those conversations, and obviously all of our countries continue to talk to the US and other allies. Alongside that, you're seeing increased investment in security in the High North, and that isn't this week or this month. That's been going on for some time. 2014, we launched the Joint Expeditionary Force, which was a group of 10 countries from the Nordics, the Baltics and the UK, to try and look at how we do High North security better. Just this, at the moment, we've got 1,500 Royal Marines in Norway. on an exercise as part of NATO. So there's a lot of discussion going on about how we can take forward the questions around Greenland, but there's also a lot of effort going into how we can support better security in the High North, and that's been happening for some time, but obviously we're now looking at how we can step it up further to meet those concerns.
I guess what I sort of garner from what all three of you have said, if I'm to arrive at something, it's that, you know, if there is sort of the right amount of attention, investment, and focus placed on the concerns that Donald Trump and the United States have expressed around Arctic sovereignty, Arctic security, where Greenland is concerned, that maybe he can be talked down from his position. Do you think that is true, Ambassador?
I wouldn't use these words, but what we are certainly doing is trying to focus on such a process in order to come to a joint agreement on how we collectively can do more as an alliance in order to secure that the High North and the Arctic stay safe and our deterrence holds. So I think this is something that is in the interest of all of us. The US, as you know, already has a very extensive defense treaty stemming from 1951, which and used to have much more troop deployments during the Cold War. So there is already a broad basis between the Kingdom of Denmark and the US to work on, and I know that our Danish friends are all ready for it. They've invested a lot in Arctic security in these past years, and I think we will continue to work on this and try to find solutions.
The president is also just very recently, Ambassador, saying or threatening to tariff any country that opposes the U.S. acquiring Greenland. To be clear, does your country oppose it, and how do you respond to that threat?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's part of the game for the moment. One more time, what we are expecting is to see the whole thing slowing down. And I'm confident in the impact of leaders, European leaders. I mean, what their message to the American political circles. You know, for the moment, when you look at some polls, you see that 75% of the Americans are against this issue. At the end of the day, this may have an impact in the perception of the midterms. I mean, so I mean, there's a lot of elements around this issue. We will have to look at that. I mean, I cross my fingers, I must say. But
even to your point, though, even Republican politicians, it's one of the few issues that they are publicly going on, you know, on media outlets, et cetera, to speak out against the president.
There was this mission today in Greenland.
Yes, yes, and I guess the question I have is, you know, despite all of that, despite the uniqueness of the situation and the pushback to it, the lack of public support, the president continues to employ the rhetoric he does. And I know often sometimes that rhetoric doesn't necessarily match the actions, High Commissioner, but in this case, he has not shown any signs of abatement.
So look, our job is to work through the issues. It's not to predict where it might go. You know, the president clearly has a position that he set out very clearly. As I say, we're working through that with allies, with the US. We're very clear that the future of Denmark is future of Greenland is for the people of Denmark and Greenland to decide. But you know, we can do more on High North security, and we are doing more on High North security, and we'll continue to discuss in NATO and as partners how we can do that, while we keep those conversations with the US and others going to see where the future takes us.
I'll just follow up quickly with you, High Commissioner, and ask more largely about NATO. I think one of the reasons, among many I should say, but one of the reasons why this is so heavily scrutinized right now is because it's two NATO allies, right? It's not an adversary threatening the sovereignty of a NATO ally. What has this conversation, the very existence of the questions, the type of questions I'm asking you, I think, done to the strength of NATO, if anything?
So I sort of take this back to, I've been in this career getting on for 30 years now, and NATO now is stronger, more relevant than it has been at any point in those 30 years. Now, obviously, a lot of that has come out of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, especially since 2022. But when that happened in 2022, I don't think there are very many people who would have predicted that the alliance would have been as united, as strong, as determined over the past 4 years as it's been. And that hasn't just been on Ukraine, it's been more broadly. We've welcomed in Sweden, Finland. You see defence spending going up. So my view is that as I look back over, say, nearly 30 years in this career, NATO now is more united, stronger. There is more money, more investment going in than I think at any point in those preceding years.
I see you, Ambassador Miraillet, nodding your head. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Even I'm the French representative in this group. No, I fully agree to that. I fully agree to that. And
what gives you that impression? And I'll sort of respectfully challenge, because I think from the outside it looks like the fact that there's this conversation about what happens if one NATO ally, infringes on the sovereignty of another, can lead some to believe, well, what's going on with NATO? This in fact has a detrimental impact to the alliance as a whole. You don't believe that's the case?
Well, there's always a risk. You don't know what may happen, but when you look at the debates, as my British colleague said, within the alliance, in front of the major threat, which is, the conflict in Ukraine, I don't think that this is, as I told you before, it's a kind of family affair, more or less unpredictable. At the end of the day, the response of the Danes was very calm, very quiet, and you have a lot of experience behind that, For the moment, the Chinese or the Russian threats on the Greenland is not so clear, not so evident, it may be different in other places of the Northern Atlantic, but you need to prepare yourself. Greenland has been central for the detection of missiles, of nuclear deterrence for the United States. For the Golden Dome, it will have to play a role there. But the Treaty of 1951 offers all the capabilities, the capacities for the Americans to build what they want and to reinforce their position. One more time, they have around less than 200 people there for the moment. So, the image, it doesn't, for us, it's not, it can be a threat, and people are looking at it very seriously in Brussels, as well as in the capitals, to which extent people in Moscow may rejoice, in front of that. I'm not sure,
Ambassador Bellmann, the final word to you. Your assessment on what the existence of this conversation does to the strength of NATO.
Of course, to just have this conversation and to have this concern of one ally in view of some of the messages that come out of Washington is not a position we want to be in. At the same time, I agree with my colleagues, it doesn't change the fact that in terms of the military substance, the posture we have, the determination to keep up our deterrence, to defend each other, there is no change I see there. I don't think this is the end of NATO or anything like that, some of the speculations that we've witnessed. And for us as policymakers and diplomats, the focus should be on trying to find a solution to this issue, invest in our strengths. We are dealing with the US administration that has been clear with regard to their expectations in terms of burden sharing and burden shifting. And at the same time, there is a clear threat in Europe that we all are facing that makes it in our own self-interest to invest much more in our defenses. And all of us are doing that. And I think this is what we should concentrate on.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you very much, High Commissioner and Ambassadors, for making the time for the conversation. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to talk about how provinces are at odds over Mark Carney's deal in China. Our Sunday strategy session is here to talk about domestic political implications of that deal. Back in a moment.